Good evening. Welcome to the October 9th Commission meeting for the City of Glendale. And we welcome your participation and thank you for your attendance, both here at the Commission chambers and as well all of you who are participating via GT6. And with that, may I have a roll call?
Commissioner Manukian.
Here.
Commissioner Abkarian.
Here.
Commissioner Devine.
Here.
And Chair McCarley.
Here.
For the record, Commissioner Gazarian is absent.
Minutes?
Minutes for the meeting of September 11, 2019.
Move to approve and dispense with reading.
Second.
I'll call the question.
Commissioner Manukian.
Abstain, I was absent.
Commissioner Abkarian.
Yes.
Commissioner Devine.
Yes.
Chair McCarley.
Yes. And as to oral communications, I have no cards in front of me requesting an opportunity to speak to us directly. Seeing no cards, we'll proceed to agenda item 4.
Recruitment and examination report.
Mr. Doyle.
Ms. Doyle?
Mr.
Please
Chair.
proceed.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is our recruitment examination status report for the preceding month. This is a report that indicates all of our current recruitment processes that are active. It lists the job titles, the filing periods, and whether it's an open or promotional exam, as well as any dates scheduled for the various examination processes. This report looks a little smaller this month than it had been in previous months, and we're making some progress in filling our vacancies. We're down to about 39 currently. I think we were up in the 60-ish range not too long ago, so staff is working very hard getting our recruitments through. So this is a note and file item, so unless you have any questions for me, it's note and file.
Commission members, any comments, questions? Thank you. And we'll move on to number 5. Mr. Doyle, once again.
Eligible list established.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, these are the eligible lists that have been established since our last meeting about approximately 1 month ago. Again, another very productive month. We have 13 lists that have been established. It's a little over 3 lists per week, which shows quite a bit of productivity. We have, of these 13 lists, 5 of them were open, 7 were promotional, and 1 was a promotional and open process. Again, this too is a note and file item. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you. Otherwise, it's note and file.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And with that, we'll proceed to agenda item 6.
Job bulletin for approval, Community Services Supervisor, Aquatics Program.
Mr. Doyle, an
Mr. Chair.
explanation, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, we have no specifications for approval tonight, but we actually have 2 job bulletins. And as you know, we don't bring every bulletin to the Commission for consideration. Under our rules, there are specific reasons for bringing them forth for Commission approval. In this case, we're looking at the bulletin for Community Services Supervisor, which is overseeing our aquatics program. And as I've been told, the aquatics program has been expanded to a year-round program, whereas it used to be focused mainly in the summertime. But we're dealing with a job series, community services series, which has various positions within it, from community services specialist to coordinator, all the way up to this level, which is a supervisor position. And this is a very generic job classification series. We use these titles for all of our various positions in the recreation side of the Community Services and Parks Department, including our aquatics program, our sports programs, our senior programs, day camps, arts and culture, special events. In this case, as the focus of this opening is exclusively for the aquatics program, we're requesting Commission approval to essentially allow us to customize this bulletin and to include duties and minimum qualifications that focus specifically on aquatics. And you'll see that in the various minimum qualifications and things like certifications in CPR by the American Red Cross, and as well as the experience requirements are focused very much on aquatics programs. So with that, if the commission approves this, we do plan to post this as a promotional and open examination bulletin probably next week. With that, if you have any questions, we also have Mr. Bolonikian here. He's the department director, as well as Ms. Navarro from my staff who put this all together.
I think on the part of the chair, I would entertain an opportunity to ask one or two questions. You're always a fountain of great information. I always appreciate the dialogue between you and my fellow commissioners and myself. My question, of course, is if you would turn to page 11, assuming that you have the same pagination. It's the fourth page of the proposed job bulletin, and it relates to experience. And my question focuses on the deletion of the provision that allows for additional individuals to apply for the job if these individuals have work experience a little bit broader than participation or full-time activity in an aquatics program, recognizing that what I'm seeing is sort of a limitation of the job population, or the population that would be responsive and can be responsive and satisfy the experience requirements. So is there a justification for that? It appeared that the original one was workable.
Chairman McCarley, members of the commission, thank you for the question. This is a very specialized position. They'll be, as Mr. Doyle mentioned, they'll be running Pacific Community Center. That's a year-round swimming pool now. We have year-round operations thanks to Measure S funding that was approved in July as part of the budget process. This position would require every candidate that is applying to have a American Red Cross CPR for the professional rescue certificate, first aid AED, lifeguard instructor certificate, water safety instructor certificate. They need to be experienced in swimming. In order to have a lifeguard instructor certificate, you will need to swim about 500 yards under 10 minutes. So it's a very specialized position. So the reason why we crossed out the human service work, including experience in the leadership capacity and community activities, is we need employees or candidates that have the aquatics experience, not only recreation.
Appreciate the response. Of course, the commission has a responsibility to the totality of the five men and women who live in the city, and I am concerned about the limitation. It suggests, and I'm sure that this is not the case, that the bulletin was designed to specifically limit the number of individuals. Perhaps it is, and I hope that this is not the case, it's a targeted job bulletin for one or two people that your department has already identified. That is
No,
not the
that's
case.
not the case. That's why it's an open promotional recruitment.
Yeah.
It's open to anyone who wants to apply that has aquatic experience.
Because I don't want to express where I want to go on this, but I am concerned about the limitation language. So for instance, if we have a fine aquatics coach from, let's say, Hoover High School, Glendale High School, Crescenta Valley High School, or Loyola University, where I graduated, it appears that that particular man or woman would not have the requisite qualifications based upon the experience requirements to serve in the capacity as community services manager. And that is my big concern. People have an ability over the course of time to learn. We give a lot of credit to those who, for instance, work satisfactorily, if not extraordinarily, with our students at GUSSD. That is my concern.
Most of the coaches that I work with, because I have 13 years aquatic experience in City of LA, They do have lifeguard instructor, lifeguarding courses, water safety courses. So if they have those certificates, they're more than welcome to apply.
And I appreciate that. What I'd like to do is to memorialize that language, because I concur with you to the extent that it's appropriate in this discourse, that the license certifications appear to me to be an appropriate prerequisite for submitting an application and for that application to be approved. The concern I have is the experience limitations. It says you've struck basically any other human service work, including experience, responsible leadership capacity, and a variety of community activities. I still think that there's an ability for those. At the end of the day, you make the final selection, but I believe that there are people that are employed currently with the city, or for instance with GUSD, Glendale Unified School District, who might or might not be currently serving in an aquatics program, but are one heck of a good soccer coach or some other sport or athletic activity and have the license and certifications.
Mr. Chair, may I maybe add something? If you turn to page 12, page 12 says an equivalent, a combination of experience, education, and/or training may substitute for the listed minimum requirements.
Is that your statement at this particular point in time?
If someone comes in and we believe that they're very qualified and one of the minimum requirements is 3 years and they're, as a coach in CV High School for 2 years, they have substantial experience, then the note in the back of equivalent combination of experience, education, or training may substitute for listed minimum requirements will come into picture to basically substitute for that individual. That's what my understanding would be.
And that would be satisfactory, assuming that the bulletin goes out in that particular fashion.
Yes.
Because it's very important for me personally, I cannot speak for my other commissioners, that we broaden the base of opportunity for those who are employed by our city and those, for instance, who are employed with GUSD, who would be equally capable of performing this type of service on behalf of everybody. So if that's the statement, then I would support it.
Thank you.
Move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Carrion?
Yes.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Chair McCarley?
Yes. And number 7.
Job bulletin for approval, Systems Engineer 2.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is another job bulletin for approval. In this instance, instead of modifying the language of the bulletin, this is being brought before you because we have a situation where this bulletin in its previous administration was conducted on a promotional basis, and the department is requesting that it be made into an open recruitment. And under those circumstances, that requires commission approval. In looking at the minimum requirements and the duties for this job, the department believes that there are a limited number of internal candidates that would qualify for this position. Thus, we're proposing to make it an open process where we would hopefully yield a stronger pool of candidates. This item was shared with the Glendale Management Association, and they've raised no objectives over this, objections over this. And I happen to know Mr. Bradford, the department director, has met with individual members of his department repeatedly. He's going through quite a bit of a reorganization, and this very subject was addressed in depth with candidates, prospective candidates, and individuals, and he might be able to share that with you as well. But with that, if you have questions for any of us, Mr. Bradford or Mr.
Bradford, as
Bradani.
always, you're invited forward. I think you even know where we're going to go with this. Or is it my campaign to consolidate the multiplicity of IT capabilities in the city under your leadership? All right, I should be very careful. If I suggest that, I might be caught sideways. But this is, from a functional standpoint, I can understand the necessity of this. This is open and promotional to the extent that we need candidates who have the requisite qualifications. So once again, I ask the question along those same lines of interest that I have in consolidation for the purpose of perhaps saving some funding, is whether or not any of this could be any personnel, for instance, who are working in GPD, Glendale Police Department, in the IT section could in fact satisfy the requirements of this particular position for experience, and would you recruit them?
Commissioner, Chair McCarley, members of the commission, as Mr. Doyle indicated, we've recently gone through an internal promotional process, and at this point, we have examined all potential candidates internally. And at this point, we do not feel we have a sufficient candidate pool to continue to fill our current vacancy. At this time, we feel our next option is to go to an external recruitment to fill our remaining vacant position.
Certainly, I have no objection to that. It's a very fine statement. I would want to expand it just a wee little bit. When you did, was this an across-the-board assessment of the 1,100 or 1,200 employees that we have in our city who have the specification that touches upon information technology? So I always make reference to Glendale Police Department because it's at the top of my list of activities often. Whether or not that assessment went into its specific IT section for individuals who could satisfy the position internally.
Commission Chair McCarley, members of the commission, the short answer is yes. We have a pretty good idea of our skill sets, but we had to look internally within our organization. As Mr. Doyle indicated, we did meet with a few individuals, and ultimately we decided they didn't meet the qualifications of what we were looking for, particularly recent experience in the skills that are in our current data center environment. So I wouldn't say I reviewed 1,200 applications, nothing to that extent, but we have a pretty good idea of the IT skills within our organization, not only in the IT department but other departments as well.
Now that's a very responsive statement, and it's encouraging to me. Once again, my focus might be different. My emphasis on consolidation for the purpose of saving money and all, that's my mantra, and it will continue to be the statement from me. But if somebody, for instance, who is employed in the IT section of Glendale Police Department, is that individual eligible to apply for this position?
Commissioner, Chair McCarley, members of the commission, on an open recruitment, I would probably look to Mr. Doyle. Can an existing employee apply for an open? I believe they can.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, I might add, even though we do have IT employees embedded in just about every department, typically the big departments, the police, fire, they all work for Mr. Bradford, so he's well aware of the staff, the capabilities. There's one exception to that. GWP does have its own mini IT department, but the staff that deals with the Verdugo Fire Communications Center, the police department, the radio shop, Public Works, library. These are IT or Information Service Department employees under Mr. Bradford's direction.
I really appreciate what Mr. Doyle has just said. It gets to where I think we need to go. Is that a solid line from an employee, an IT employee at GPD, Glendale Police Department, to you? Or are there other layers? Is this more what they used to say in organizational structure? Is this a dotted line in which you are coordinating, but you don't have direct hire and fire? You don't have the ability to say, do it. You have to work through a variety of other managers within, let's say, GPD.
Commission Chair McCarley, members of the commission, in this particular case, with the staff assigned to the Glendale Police Department, I have the ability to say do it. But it is a direct, solid line. They just happen to be staffed based on the operational necessity.
Well, that's okay, because that's, if I
But it certainly
that,
rolls up into my organization, and they're part of my organizational chart.
because that
So-
makes sense in terms of parceling out management capabilities, so long as you retain control and you consolidate and you move, have the ability to move an individual from GPD to, let's say, GFD based upon requirements. Do you have that ability?
Absolutely.
Now, are there exceptions? You know, the exceptions sometimes are greater than the rule. So are there exceptions to that besides order and power? Meaning within, let's take, since we've been focusing on GPD, are there individuals who do IT functions? I know we've gone through this a couple of times. They have specialized skill sets, for instance, because they read various databases that are resident in the California Department of Justice or FBI. Do they work for you as well?
Commissioner Chair, McCarley, members of the commission, I may have missed the question. Are you referring to particular GPD staff that have IT skills or?
Yeah, that's basically it. It's an IT capability. You are providing sort of support, infrastructure support, but are there individuals who are outside of that reporting lane to you? Meaning, do the departments set up their own individual little IT cells, which are cost centers?
Commissioner Chair McCarley, members of the commission, the answer is no. We've kind of run the gamut over the historical years. We've been somewhat decentralized in the past, but we've pretty much centralized our IT services at this point, with the exception of GWP.
Okay, well, thanks to your leadership. So you'll hear this as long as I'm up here, the same sort of question, but it is interesting, and I've dealt with it in a variety of different ways in different capacities. But I am encouraged by what you have said, and thank you for serving with the City of Glendale.
Thank you.
Move to approve?
Second?
Commissioner Manukian?
Yes.
Commissioner Ovkarian?
Yes.
Commissioner Devine?
Yes.
Chair McCarley?
Yes. Number
Reports?
8. Report.
Reports.
Mr. Chair, the only report we have are the past due evaluations. You see, it's a very small report as far as those departments with past due evaluations. There are just 2. The rest of the departments, the vast majority, have none. So anyway, kudos to the organization for that.
I think we ought to call in the Director of Human Resources, find out why there's one late one.
All right, we could suggest he stand in front of us and we'll take him to task.
Well, there's only 2, one in fire and one in human resources. I think we can maybe
Cut him some slack.
cut him some slack, because we said it's only the first notice.
Well,
You could have just deleted these numbers.
Oh, no. Very
it must be
transparent.
we have a very short agenda then. And with that, I presume we're at number 9, and that's Civil Service Commission staff comments. We'll begin with staff.
I have none.
Are there any?
Thank you for your assistance tonight.
Of course. Adjournment.
That's fine.
Move to adjourn.
To adjourn.
I do not believe that there'll be opposition.